We are 3 days away to the general elections, and businesses have faced and continue to face losses in the run-up to these polls. That's due to frequent protests and a dampened investor perception. Now, many have confirmed that indeed losses have been faced, but to paint a picture into numerical values, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance has given a sector-by-sector overview and losses experienced. Let's take a look at that. The overall outlook expected, that's for 2017, was 5.9%. They, of course, recorded 4.7%. That's early in 2017 due to a drought, especially in the agricultural sector, that affected the agricultural sector adversely. And right now, what they project is that the overall 2017 economic outlook will fall below 5%. Of course, the year is not over yet, so we don't know how this will pan out towards the end of the year. But what we know is they project that it will go below 5%. So let's look at sector by sector overview. Now, what you see on your screens right now is just basically dependent on how the sectors contribute to the overall economy as a whole. Of course, agriculture contributes about 32% of the overall economy. Now, for 2016, we had a 7.1% projection, but of course, performance that is. But on the projection for 2017, especially in the first quarter of the year, it fell to a 1.4% growth. And look at manufacturing there, of course, had a performance of 5.3% last year. This year, what KEPSA says, it's just going to be at 2.3%. And the tourism, especially at this hour, of course, where tourists are basically planning their holidays towards the end of the year. This, of course, we expect a fall in 2017 to come into 13.4%. So let's look at the drivers now to this key economic sectors overview. Of course, that is first beginning with transportation. What the Matatu Owners Association say is that this is on a 7-year low, and of course, this is compared to the diesel consumption. And using here diesel, of course, is just looking at the amount of diesel consumed, of course, depending on how many people go to work every day, and also look at electricity supply. Look at there saying that the hydroelectricity has reduced actually consumption by 36.8%, and of course expecting a flat growth that is in geothermal. And of course, moving on, you just want to look at how else will other sectors, of course, be affected. Key among them, of course, you're looking at education and look at the performance at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Of course, this is not news that the school calendar has been disrupted, of course, in view of the current political situation. And of course, with the national exams, and last but not least, of course, looking at the tertiary institutions that have also affected ongoings at the schools of institutions of higher learning. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Now, what these numbers show you here is that 11.1 billion, that is looking at the amount of shillings that have been of course, received from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. What they say is that this equity turnover is actually higher compared to last year's. But the question is this money flowing into the country or out of the country? Of course, considering that 70% of investors at the Nairobi Securities Exchange are actually international investors. So, and tomorrow, actually, we should say that we're expecting a full report from the Capital Markets Authority on a full overview of the complete performance at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, of course, with the general capital markets outlook. So, still staying with what KEPSA says is that, of course, there's been major event cancellations. This is in the run-up towards the elections. We had, of course, the Safari service expected here. We had the United Nations AIDS Coalition Committee, all events which have been postponed, of course, in light of this election jitters. We also had a low investor confidence, and, of course, they're looking towards how do you ensure that this will look towards in the coming months. So a lot more on concerns there by the private sector. But last but not least, of course, what KEPSA says is that at the end of it, of course, businesses maintain a cautiously optimistic outlook, saying that, well, we are indeed going into an elections, but what will be the meat of it all is how the country, of course, moves on from here.